Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Tony Holowitz, and I want to give you some insights on working with importing data from Excel. So, in theory, the whole concept of importing into Act software from Excel is pretty straightforward. Having said that, one of the things about Excel that is tricky is interpreting the data. So, in other words, you can import stuff easy. There's a tool in Act that helps you do that. But the first thing you have to do when you're trying to import data into Act is open up your Excel file and interpret the information that's in there. Now, one of the things that makes importing data tricky is it's generally not something we do all the time. So you might do it today and you might not do it again for 6 months. So every time you do it, you've got to sort of review how this works. And the most important aspect is going in and looking at the Excel data and trying to recognize what's in that data. When people reach out to me to import data and they have an Excel spreadsheet, the actual importing of the data is fairly quick. On that note, where I tend to spend more time with them initially in the first spreadsheet they work with is going through the spreadsheet and making sure the information is set up correctly so when I import it into Act, it will come in nice and clean. And let me give you a little bit of an example of that. Try to imagine for a moment that you run an ice cream shop. And that ice cream shop has a spreadsheet of customers and it tracks information about the customers, their name, maybe their phone number, their email address, things of that nature, general contact information. But what if it has other data such as the first time they came into the shop, what did they order? Maybe visit number one, they ordered chocolate ice cream. They got it in a cone versus a cup. Maybe they had sprinkles on it, or maybe they had some other kind of topping that you want to track. So that's just visit number one. But let's say they came in 10 times and you're tracking this for each visit and all that data is in Excel. Well, that is a lot of columns of data in Excel. There's a lot of rows of contacts. And now the real trick is, where do you put that information in Act once it comes over from Excel? So for example, if you have a field that's their favorite ice cream flavor, do you have that field in Act? So again, if that column or that information's in Excel, where do you put that information in Act when you import it? And then look at some of the other columns of information you want to bring in. You have to make sure when you import it into Act, there is a place for it. So sometimes what happens is after you clean up and interpret the data in Excel, what you now have to do is go back into Act and create some new fields and add them to the Act layout. So what happens is there's a lot of reviewing and prep between Excel and Act when you're importing data. Another thing I will typically do is say, okay, when these people come in, who are they? Are they customers? Are they prospects? Are they vendors? Who are they? And Act has a field called the ID status field. And there is no reason why you can't add a new column in Excel. And let's assume all the people coming in are customers. In that one column, maybe you label it ID status, and then in that area for each contact in Excel, you can literally put the word customer in each area. So now when you're importing this information into Act, it also fills in the ID status so you have a sense of who they are. Yesterday I had a client that I was working with and they were bringing in data, and one of the things that happen is sometimes when you work with people in Excel, they handle Excel differently than I would based on their experience level working with Excel. And in the example yesterday, the person who was entering the data into Excel did things in an unusual way. Excel has tabs across the bottom. So when you open up a spreadsheet, typically it opens up with one spreadsheet and then down below 3 tabs. So you could have 3 tabs of information. And in this case, what the person did was they said, okay, I'm going to put all the contacts from A to C on tab 1. And then from D to H, tab 2, and so on and so on. So now we had 3 tabs of information, and Act doesn't like that. From an Excel point of view, what we had to do is take all that tab information and transfer it to tab number 1. So there was only one tab and all the other tabs didn't have any data. And that's just an example of the way sometimes working with Excel to import data into Act can be a little tricky. Years of experience working with Act and working with Excel and importing data allows me to look at your data and try to interpret what needs to be done to get it cleaned up to make it easier to bring into Act. And then going forward, you have a better sense of how to work with that data. So the next time you want to import a spreadsheet, it's fairly clean at the beginning. So there's very little work typically outside of maybe just a quick review of how the data works and how the data flows from Excel into Act. So it's worthwhile to talk about this beforehand if you're about to prepare a lot of data to import into Act. Maybe create a template that makes sense so you put the information in Excel in a good way. Now I recognize a lot of times you can't do that because the Excel spreadsheet is given to you, but nonetheless you want to interpret that data and see how it's going to flow. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to give you a sense of what is involved when you import data into Microsoft Excel. Thank you so very much. As always, if you have any questions, reach out to me. My name is Tony Holowitz. Be well. Bye now.